Just this fall, the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act was declared unconstitutional by a federal court in Texas. For-profit adoption placement agencies, religious fundamentalists, and right-wing think tanks like the Goldwater Institute want to return us to those destructive times. So you know, the separation of families by ICE is nothing new. It didn't start with Trump or Obama. It's been happening for centuries to black and indigenous families. Red dresses hung from the stage in the sound truck to visually remind all of missing and murdered indigenous women, girls, and two-spirits. Indigenous women and two-spirits have been under attack since 1492, and murder is the third leading cause of death for indigenous women in the U.S. In Canada, several thousand indigenous women are considered to be missing or murdered. In cities like Winnipeg, indigenous youth, many of them in foster care, women, girls, and two-spirits, disappear all the time. But even young boys and men are also murdered, which people often forget to mention. In border towns with Mexico, women disappear all the time. Right now, there are 25 missing women and girls from Gallup, New Mexico alone, and it's a small town on Interstate 40, which is a border town for the Dene Nation, the Navajo Reservation. And I think most of you here became aware during the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock that one of the reasons indigenous nations fight against pipelines and fracking and mining is that man camps are set up for the workers. The men have huge sums of money and lots of drugs like meth and heroin to entice young women who often end up addicted, kidnapped, and trafficked. And some of these sisters disappear, some are raped, and often murdered. And of course, indigenous people everywhere are leading the fight against fossil fuel pipelines and other corporate and governmental assaults on clean water, air, and lands. Marjorie Flowers, a Rigolet Inuk and a Labrador land protector, traveled from Labrador in the far north to speak against the Canadian plan to build the Muskrat Falls mega hydro dam that will destroy their lands and homes in Labrador in the province of Newfoundland. Energy from this dam would run into the U.S. through the Maritimes, through precious forests and parklands in Maine, down to Plymouth, at the expense of indigenous lives, culture, and food. Wampanoag elder Bert Waters, who's 88, read a statement from Native political prisoner Leonard Peltier, as he does each year, and he led the march through Plymouth. But it was so cold that the march was begun early to get people moving to warm up. And when we arrived in front of the pebble that they call Plymouth Rock, we paused to hear some more speakers from the sound truck. Juan Gonzalez delivered a message from the Council of Maya Elders. June Sapiel and Don Neptune Adams Penobscot spoke on the battles against fossil fuel pipelines. I spoke connecting the movement against violence toward women that is most sharply seen in the numbers of murdered and missing indigenous women, girls, and two-spirits with the capitalist idea of man over nature. All the carbon in the atmosphere, comrades and friends, the assault of fossil fuel pipelines on clean water and air, and the assault on the remaining undeveloped lands around the earth are all fronts in a war against Mother Earth. Indigenous people are leading the fight to protect Mother Earth and all life. National Day of Mourning will continue to gather every year until the U.S. military and corporations stop polluting the earth, until the oppression of our two-spirit native siblings is a thing of the past, until the homeless have homes, until people from Mexico, Central America, and South America are no longer demonized and targeted, until indigenous nations all have self-determination. And a serious heads up, comrades, 2020 will be the year of the 400th anniversary of the Pilgrims' invasion. There are battles that are going to build with the ruling class in Massachusetts, with the Mayflower Association. They're going to attack Wampanoag, Massachusetts, Narragansett, Nipmuc, and Pequot nations, and we need to have UAINEs back. Every struggle is connected to the genocide of indigenous people and the Indian Wars. And until we've saved Mother Earth and the whole biosphere of life, Native people will fight. Smash capitalism, water is life, and stand with Mashpee.